Hi there, we're at Singapore Fintech Festival and I'm sitting here with Shradha Sharma. Absolute pleasure to have you sitting with us.
Thank you so much.
How are you doing today?
I'm good and thank you for having me here. The place is obviously buzzing and I'm excited to be talking to you.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy here at the moment. Sort of over 16,000 delegates I think came in just yesterday.
Yeah.
So it's absolutely manic here. So thanks very much for taking the time to speak to us. I was reading some of your bio beforehand and it was saying that you're recognised as a champion and builder of the entrepreneurial ecosystems in India. It's quite a heavy accolade, I would say. But not quite as much as Fortune Best 40 Under 40 for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
This year, make it a fourth, maybe?
Hopefully.
How do you feel with that sort of accolade, and how does it fit with your experience of your past, etc.?
You know, it's always very nice when you get recognized, but after, you know, the incremental value of getting recognized over the years starts diminishing. I think it's the kind of impact that you're creating, the kind of, you know, that what you're doing has a purpose and meaning. I think that is something that excites me. And yeah, when I was a kid, getting awards and recognitions used to excite me. And when you become an entrepreneur, then initial days you want people, you know, to like you, and you need that external validation that matter. But today I'm at that stage of my life where today if I get awarded or not doesn't matter. So it comes with time, it comes with age. Yeah, and I'm excited and thankful and blessed about the role that I've been able to play in the development and shaping up of the startup ecosystem in India. Started your story 11 years back and it has been like intense 11 years because when I started, the word startup in India was not there, and just getting that exciting because culturally we are, you know, we look for jobs, stability, and getting people, young people, to think that starting up is exciting, and making it mainstream in the country. I've been privileged to play a part in that, and that to me is very exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've always found India to be one of the most entrepreneurial places in the whole world. There's so much interest and excitement and energy in the whole country to try and obviously find a role, find a job, find a way of, you know, succeeding. So how did your sort of initial thoughts sort of start when you started your story? Where did it sort of come from? What's the sort of history behind it?
Yeah, so I was in Mumbai, which is financial capital kind of a city in India, and I used to work in CNBC, the news channel, and before that Times of India, which is a very large print publication, and I could see the kind of stories the mainstream media was covering, and they were successful stories, people who were accomplished, people who had achieved, and somewhere I was just thinking that we need to give voice to stories which were not sexy, which were not cool, and somewhere celebrate those simple stories of people in different parts of the country, struggling but trying to find their own rhythm, trying to find their own place, and how do we start writing about those common, simple, but very hopeful stories. And that's how I started it, because at that time I had gone to many media companies saying let's do it, and the companies I was in, they said, oh, there's no money in this is a social venture, this is a charity, writing such stories, it won't work. So I said okay, and that's how I started up, and now it's 11 years.
Okay, fantastic. And how did the sort of the name transpire? I'd imagine is there a story behind your story?
Oh, that's a very beautiful that's a very beautiful question, and very personal to me. Is that, you know, the world we are in, and you are coming from London, I don't know if you experience it there, but the context in which I grew up as a kid, there was a sense of we, and there was a sense of inclusion, there was a sense of community. And when I went to a larger city, Mumbai, there was a lot of I, and I think the world has moved to a lot of I, and somewhere it has its own merit, but somewhere the sense of community, the sense of cheerleading for each other, and having that sense of we belong, I feel has disappeared in the world of, and we are most connected today. And somewhere I'm just thinking it's all about my story, and somewhere we've stopped listening. And I thought that if I listen to your story as you are listening to my story, then we will inculcate a habit of listening to someone else and appreciating stories around us. And if we all start appreciating your stories, different stories, then I think we will build a very different kind of narrative in the world. And that's how I named it. I could have named it My Story, Our Story, We Story, I Story, but I just said let's celebrate diversity, different voices, different stories.
And it's interesting that you mentioned about diversity, because obviously looking through the website, you have your story, her story now. So tell me a little bit about sort of inclusion and sort of gender equality, perhaps.
Yeah, India is a very interesting place. While at one, and you've been to India, so while there is one spectrum of India from where we got the Prime Minister was a woman. India is one country we have seen a women in power, in politics, corporate. So we see a lot of women in the forefront. But then there is also another India where increasingly women are getting out of the workforce. Women are not getting their voice heard. And the last 2 years have been extremely significant in the way that as the economy is doing better, you would expect that women will work more. But as the economy is doing better, women are leaving their jobs and sitting at home. And there is something unequal happening. And the whole premise with her story was that women are siloed either into, content around women is glamour or it is about victimization. So it's just embracing women as they are and telling their stories, like normal, imperfect, but at the same time trying to find their voice. And I have always said that her story will exist till we have an equal story for both men and women. So there's no very strong manifesto or agenda to it. It's just to give voice to women, diverse voice.
It's quite interesting because in some of the research I was looking at before this interview, apparently you're the third most influential person on LinkedIn, with Prime Minister Modi at the top, and then a Bollywood star, and then yourself. So that's quite an interesting sort of definition of what you've just said, the three different voices or the three different types of India today.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. And see, my being recognized there is also a very interesting phenomenon, because it's a transition which is happening in India where you could come from any kind of a background and still, get to reach a lot of people and get to be recognized by a lot of people. And that to me is very exciting, because it's not the kind of background you come from, the privileges that you come from, or certain schools and colleges you come from. If you have a voice and it's authentic, then today people are ready to connect, and then you can, and then, so it's a fair playing ground, I would say, and digital gives you that platform where all of us can make a mark for ourselves.
Absolutely. So obviously we're here at Singapore Fintech Festival and you've been speaking today. What are the sort of things that you've been speaking about on stage here?
So the whole thing was I was the conversation with unicorns, and I'm not a unicorn, was on company building and what it takes to build companies, because a lot of entrepreneurs and startups are there. And so there were very interesting questions asked on, once you scale the company, what are the challenges? How do you go through scale? Once you raise money, how things change? So those were very good questions, which we were talking about.
Yeah. And have you seen a sort of a significant difference in the sort of the range of raising money here in sort of Singapore compared to, say, somewhere in India?
I would say India right now is one of the most exciting markets, if I may say so. A lot of investors from Singapore and every part of the world is coming to India. I think the macro trends across the world are also helping. The China-US trade war is helping. Sad it is, but yes. So a lot of investors, if I may say so, are in India and investing. So it's a very interesting time. So in fact, we did a research in the first 9 months of 2019, $7.8 billion were invested in just startups. So that's interesting, and that number will just keep on growing and growing. Well. So
yeah, it's quite interesting. We see a lot of parallels between the UK, obviously where the Fintech Power 50 is based, and India as well. And obviously we have a lot of heritage between the two countries, which I think helps the sort of the transition of investment and also companies from one way to another. So we've seen an awful lot of that increasing as well, as you say, with the tensions between the US and China. The UK and India have been able to continue to form their sort of special bond and keep progressing a little bit better as well.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So what lies in store for you for the future? What's going to happen with yourself and your story in 2020?
So we are here. So I came to Singapore primarily also to study the ASEAN market, because we would look at expanding in this market. Indonesia is a country that we are looking very closely, and I will be going in the next couple of days and spending some time over there, because they have 175 million active users on mobile phones. So just studying, and because I've been told that they also are keen to have a platform like your story. So yeah, so that's one definitely on the cards, and exciting place to be, because we have got huge readership, revenue is good, we've expanded into education. So yeah, 11 years feels good, and also feels that it's just begun. So it's a new market.
Absolutely.
You'll understand, you're an entrepreneur.
Yeah, absolutely. The next new market is like starting the story again in a new way, learning from some of the potential mistakes that you made in the past, and doing better in the future.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, lovely. Thank you very much for spending your time with you. I know you're very busy, so we'll let you get on. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Love talking to you. Thank you.